Hi guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing my January reading wrap up. Before I get into the specific books that I read, I want to start off with some stats. So let's take a look at the numbers. I read 12 books this month. Out of those 12 books, what genres did I read? Adult, contemporary, fiction, humor, sports, romance, college, and music, with romance being the top contender. Next, here are all the tropes that had me absolutely hooked. I read Opposites Attract, Hockey Love, and Forced Proximity the most this month. And when it comes to how many times I turned that page, I read a whopping 4,406 pages of brilliant writing. So how did I read these books? I read them on Kindle Unlimited mostly, Libby, Audible, and Kindle, with the Kindle category being books that I purchased. As for all the authors I read this month, Elle Kennedy took the leading spot, with a few of the books being written by her. I read 12 books this month, which I feel like is actually a good medium comparison to what I was doing like last year. I was doing around 20-25 in one month at some point, but this month I feel like I paced it well between reading books, creating content, posting YouTube videos, working, living life, all that thing. I feel like I had a really good balance. So we hit 12. All right, so we're done with the stats, and that basically sums up all of the type of books that I read this month, and you kind of get a general idea of like what type of books I like to read. Now let's actually talk about what I actually read. I have all my dates in my Notion file, so I'm gonna be kind of like looking at that to reference everything because I don't remember everything off the top of my head. So this is like a really good place for me to kind of just get all my dates. So the first book that I read was actually carrying on from Christmas, but I had to put it in my January because it took me quite a while to finish this book because I didn't realize it was so long. It did take me a little bit too long to finish because it was just going on forever, but that was How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. Now this was kind of like one that I'd started over Christmas time and I wanted to finish at Christmas, but I never did. And then I just kind of like brushed it off and finished it in January. So we're just kind of off the heels of the Christmas spirit there. And I finished that one on January 6th. This one was contemporary, fiction, humor, and adult. I gave it a spice level of 5 and I rated it overall a 4. This one I had to stack in my Bookshop Vibes collection because this was heavily influenced to me based off of Book Talk. Everyone on Book Talk said read this damn book, so I read it and it was so random. It was very slow, like the slowest burn I've read in a very long time. It probably took around 300 pages before there was any type of anything happening. It was just all enemies to lovers, slow burn. It was just, I do like those tropes a lot, but not for that long. I feel like I read an entire book of them being enemies until like the last 100 pages was like, or last couple hundred pages was where they actually started like being like more romantic, and then it kind of like it went from 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds. It was actually kind of crazy, but the book was okay. And would I recommend it? Probably, yeah. It's definitely something you want to read around like Christmas time. I wouldn't recommend to read it at any time except for around Christmas time because it just doesn't work for the vibes. Okay, so the next book that I read was Collide. Now this is a book that I had gotten Kindle Unlimited in 2023 and I read like the first chapter and I loved it, and then I just ended up not finishing it and I returned it to Kindle Unlimited and just didn't bother with it. And then I knew that I wanted to read the upcoming book Spiral. I pre-ordered it, so I was like, okay, I have to go back and read Collide. Oh my god, I'm so glad I did. That book to me is hands down one of my most favorite books of all time. It is, I never used to like hockey romance type books. In fact, I can't even say I never used to like it because I never even read them before, but I like unleashed a hockey romance obsession inside of me, and that's all I can read now. You're gonna see like I have a bunch of hockey romance books that I've been reading. I don't even understand hockey. I don't even know how hockey works. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, but the hockey romance stories they're so good. I cannot stop reading these books. Also, I love that the female lead is a woman of color, and then also Spiral, the spin-off,
that one also has a woman of color female lead as well. So I'm living for these women of color female lead hockey romance sports lover books. So the categories for this book, I put sports, romance, college, and fiction. It's by Belle Carbre. I rated it 5 stars, obviously, because like I said, it's one of my favorite books. It's part of the series called Off the Ice. The tropes in this book are opposites attract and enemies to lovers, 2 of my absolute favorite tropes. So the female lead is an honor student, and she basically has to do a research assignment on sports, and they assign her to the captain of the hockey team, and so she has to do an assignment on him, and obviously as they get closer they start to realize that they actually like each other. The story is giving early 2000s rom-com. It's so sweet, it's fun. It felt like I was watching a show on Freeform, like from back when I was like a teenager. I just loved it. All right, moving on. So the next book, we have another hockey sports romance, and this one was just recommended to me by Kindle Unlimited, and so I was like, okay, I'm already high off the heels off of my Collide hockey sports romance, let's just jump into another one. So I downloaded it. This one is called Pucked, and it was by Helena Hunting. Now guys, let me tell you, I did not expect this book to be so spicy. I thought it was going to be like Collide. Like Collide was spicy, but this one just like blew it out of the water in terms of spice. Like from like the first couple chapters, it was insane. So I will say, warning to you, if you're not really into like spicy romance books, I would stay away from Pucked, because that one is crazy. So the categories I gave this book was adult, contemporary, and sports. And then the tropes I gave it was hockey love and opposites attract. So this story follows a girl who ends up having like a one-night stand with a guy who's on a famous team in the NHL, and they pretty much, it starts off with that happening, and then the story unfolds after that of them like figuring out like how do they feel about each other, is this a thing, like it's a very good book. And I will say that the male lead is not the greenest of green flags, but I don't know, it's one of those books where it's like you either like it or you don't, and it might be a bit much for some people, and I feel like it was a bit much for me too, but I got through it and I was like, okay, it's actually like a cute story in the end, and they actually really like filled the story. Like they showed the whole storyline. They even did like the epilogue was really fleshed out and like gave us like a true picture of what's happening. So I will give the writer that and say they did a really good job at that. I rated it 4 stars, and then I gave the spice rating 5. The next book I read was called The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I love Elle Kennedy. I think her writing style is fantastic. I think she is honestly truly one of the greatest romance sports writers out there, and I've been breezing my way through these sports books, okay? She's really good. She knows what she's doing. She really tells a story. It feels like relatable. It's any book that she writes feels very relatable. It feels like you're watching a movie. It feels like you're on like watching something on Freeform. It's really cool. Categories I gave this book is sports, romance, adult, contemporary, and college, because it is based in college, and I'm a sucker for a college book. I love when they're set in college because it just feels like you're watching like your early 2000s teen shows. This one was really cute because the male lead really wanted to pursue the female lead, but the female lead already had her eyes set on someone else, and to make that person to get the attention of that person that she really likes, she ends up fake dating the guy that wants to pursue her. It's like it's all the crazy tropes in one. The tropes that I had written down for this was fake relationship, enemies to lovers, forced proximity, opposites attract, and hockey love. Okay, the next book I read was called 1 Week in Paradise. This one was really sweet. I loved the storyline behind this because it's definitely more of like a modern book. The female lead is an influencer and she ends up getting into like a big scandal, and so she thinks like her career is over. She basically like shut off her social media so that she can't read the comments, and the scandal involved like her ex, and apparently her ex was involved in like some kind of like to timing. So while she's like in her hiding, she does get like all her brand deals are disappearing, like all her money is depleting, and she feels like she has nothing going on. So she ends up checking her email, and she saw that there was a brand deal, like a random brand deal to go on a brand trip to Jamaica. And so she was like, okay, I want to go on this trip, but the stipulations were she needed to, it was a couple's brand trip, so you're supposed to go there with a couple, and obviously she's not dating her ex anymore because of the scandal. And so she's like, oh my god, I need to go on this trip, I need to revive my career, I need to bring someone. And so she brings her brother's best friend. So you catch my drift, what's happening here. I gave this book 4 stars. The spice rating was also 4 stars because it got spicy. It's a short book, only just a little bit over 200 pages, so I breezed through it in one day. It is part of a series, and the tropes I gave it were fake relationship, brother's best friend, enemies to lovers, and forced proximity. Okay, back to our hockey love. We are now doing another Elle Kennedy book, and this was The Chase. So it's not from the same series, it's a separate series. So I currently have 2 different series running from Elle Kennedy. First one that I mentioned, which was The Deal, that was in the Off Campus. That series is called Off Campus. And then this one, The Chase, is a different series called Briar U, which is a different university, but like parallel type of like things happening. This one was fantastic. I rated it 5 stars. Out of all the different series that Elle Kennedy makes, and you want to read a hockey romance series, this one is by far my favorite in comparison to the other series that I've been reading. The main leads are amazing, and then the side characters amazing, and I want to read all the other books because I want to know about all the other characters' side stories and their relationships and their things that are happening. Like the whole ecosystem is just so fleshed out and so fun, and everyone has so much depth to them, and they all have their own individual personalities that are just really, really amazing. So the categories for this book is sports, romance, contemporary, new adult, and college. This is also a Kindle Unlimited book, and the tropes that I would give this would be opposites attract, forced proximity, brother's best friend, hockey love, and I also put it in my special category of swoon-worthy love stories because it was extra swoon-worthy. I think I could probably give this a slow burn as well because it was pretty slow before they actually got together, but once they did, it was fire, explosive. It was so good. Honestly, I don't even want to reveal anything about the book. I want you to just experience it for yourself without me giving like my preconceived like notions of what I think about the book. I want you to just take your time and just read the book and feel all the emotions that I felt while reading it. Okay, the next book on my list is called Burnout. This is another sports romance, but it's not hockey this time. This one, sports, I gave the categories for this book: sports, romance, college, and fiction. So the male lead is a motorcycle racer and the female lead is a gymnast. So they're both athletes in their own right, but we're not doing hockey, okay? This one's by Rebecca Jenshek. Gave this a 4-star rating. I thought it was a really good book. I felt like the story did go a little deep. It did kind of go into like the lifestyle and behind the scenes of the male lead and his family and like his past traumas and that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really good and informative writing, but I felt like the love story did fall a little short, and I didn't really like how the male lead treated the female lead, and their like dynamic was really weird, and I just didn't like how he treated her until he realized that he actually really liked her. So I don't know, it was a hit or miss for me. It was a good book for sure. The storyline was good, the writing was great. I just couldn't give it 5 stars because it just like parts of the book rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Kind of long. It was 456 pages, and it is part of a series called the Holland Brothers because the male lead is from a family of a bunch of brothers and they all have their own story going on. So I will continue the series and find out more about the other brothers as well, which is kind of fun because I like books with big ecosystems. So tropes that I gave it was opposites attract, forced proximity, and enemies to lovers. I'm sure you can see there's theme here going on. Like, and honestly guys, I did not specifically pick these books because of those tropes. I let Kindle Unlimited kind of recommend me books, so Kindle Unlimited kind of knows what I like to read, and it was like, here, you should read this. If you like this, you should read this. And so that's kind of how I was picking my books this month, was letting like the suggestions from Kindle Unlimited be my guide. All right, the next book, my first library book of the month, which is called The Au Pair Affair. This one was highly recommended on TikTok, and I was like, I gotta read this. Also, I kept seeing it, like whenever I went to the bookstore, I kept seeing it like on display as like a must read. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it. This is slightly different to my other books that I've been reading because this is set for like a much older age group. The guy is a hockey player. Yes, it's a hockey trope. He's a hockey player, and he's a dad. He's a single dad, and he has a daughter, and he needs a nanny. And the nanny is basically someone who's gonna help him like relate to his daughter, help his daughter with her things that she needs, or he can focus on like winning the Stanley Cup or whatever it is that he's trying to do. And of course, what I really liked about this book is that from like the jump, the guy knew his intentions. Like he was like, okay, I really like this woman, even though I'm hiring her as a nanny, I'm gonna stay professional. I'm gonna try and stay professional, but I really like this woman. So like we knew off the bat that like he was interested, and that's what made it really fun. So we basically like read the book with him, like watching him pursue her, and I thought it was really awesome. He's a major green flag and such a great book. Like I highly recommend it. I gave it a rating of a 4-star. I didn't give it a 5 because I don't think I'd read it again. So like for me, when I give 5-star ratings, it's got to be so epic, so amazing, moves me in a way where I'm like, I have to go back and read that again at some point. And this book, I don't think I'll read it again, but I thought it was great. The spice level, I gave it like a 3.5. It is spicy. It's not like it doesn't have like smut in it, but like I've like considering the books that I've read this month, those were off the chain, off the charts insanity. And so in comparison, it would be like a 3.5. It had about 380 pages. It is part of a series called The Big Shots. And the tropes I gave it were grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, and single parent. Okay, the next book I read was called I Like You Like That. Now, I had this in my Kindle Unlimited for a very long time. Honestly, it was the cover art that sold me. It was a plus-size woman. I love reading books about plus-size women, I'm sorry. I have read all of Amy Ward books, and I think they're fantastic, top tier, the greenest of green flag guys. Like, it's just like, yeah, but this is not an Amy Award book, sorry. This is a Kayla Gross book, and it's like a similar style to the Amy Award books, that's why I mentioned it. This is about a female who is a professional singer now. She's really big, like as big as Taylor Swift in terms of her popularity, and she ends up needing a bodyguard because she has some crazy stalkers coming for her. And so the bodyguard that she hires, or that her team hires, happens to be an old friend that she used to be best friends with back when she was younger, before she was famous. And she actually confessed to him, and he rejected her back then, and he didn't really explain why. He just basically said to you, I could never like you like that. And she stuck that in her head, and that's why the book's called I Like You Like That. And he basically said to her, I could never like you like that, and that like hurt her. She was like, oh my god, I cannot believe he said that. And like obviously it affected her in a lot of ways, and she just like ghosted him after that, and they were besties. And it's a really good book. The categories I gave this was romance, music, fiction, cozy feel, and adults, because it does have some serious spice in there. I gave it a 4 stars. The spice level, I gave it 3. And in terms of tropes, I didn't give it any tropes. Oh, I didn't even write the tropes in here. But I would say it definitely has second chances, grumpy sunshine, and forced proximity. Let me add those right now. Forced proximity. I would also say it kind of gives enemies to lovers as well. Like after reading this, I was like, wow, I really like bodyguard type, protector type books. Like I was like, oh, okay, I kind of like this trope. I dig it. I'm gonna look for some more like this. And so I actually did look up another book that had like a similar trope, and I'll tell you guys about that after the next book. So the next book that I read was another Elle Kennedy book. Your girl was on fire this month. I ended up reading 3 of her books, and this was The Mistake. So I got this book with Kindle Unlimited, and then I decided to get the audiobook because, as I mentioned in a previous video, that you can actually get audiobooks from Audible for really cheap if you get the if you download the Kindle Unlimited book. So I downloaded this on Kindle Unlimited, and I think I got the audiobook for like $4. I was like, so I got the audiobook, and I mixed between listening on Audible and reading on my Kindle, and then sometimes I did like immersive reading where I was listening and reading at the same time. So that was really fun. This one is continuing the off-campus series that she has, and the tropes that I gave this was hockey love and opposites attract. So this is following another member of the hockey team, and it's just kind of like following on from the previous story and where he was at with everything. He plays an intricate part in the first book because he's like a contender for the female lead, but he doesn't win, obviously. But he wins in this book because he ends up getting his own spin-off romance story. So it's a great book. The categories for this are the same as the previous: college, sports, romance, fiction, all the things that I've been loving this month. The only audiobook that I listened to this month, I physically read all the rest on my Kindle. The next book on my list was called Papers Don't Lie. This one was so actually kind of crazy and definitely not something that I would typically read. It definitely went way out there in the scope of type of books that I like to read. Like it was a lot. There was a lot of trauma happening in this book, and I'm not one for loving books with lots of trauma. And then also like a lot of them had like really twisted like mindsets on a lot of stuff, and it was just very like chaotic, and honestly, it's not for everyone. That book had okay, so the tropes for this book, the tropes that I gave for this book was marriage of convenience, because the girl is basically like 19 and she has to marry this 26-year-old because the family like pays for her to like, the family gets rich by selling off their daughter to a rich billionaire. It's just so insane. I'm like, this is just far from what I typically like to read, and I honestly didn't know what the book was about. I just really liked the cover, and I get drawn into really cute aesthetic like illustrated covers, and I absolutely would not have read this book if the cover was not so like really cool. So yeah, it has marriage of convenience, forced proximity, billionaire romance. She also has a crazy stalker that is like a psychopath that like wants to kill anyone around her, or even her probably. I don't even know. This book was just I don't know. There were parts that I really liked. There were parts of the book that I really liked, and there are parts that were just really way too out there for me. It was about 398 pages. It's by Maeve Hazel. Maeve Hazel. The categories I gave it was just fiction and romance. I honestly didn't know what other categories to put it in because I was just like, oh, this book is so random. And then I will say the male lead was a green flag for a while until he kind of lost his mind a little bit, and then he was a super red flag for a solid 2-3 chapters, and then he went back to being his green flag self again, which to me in itself in all is a red flag, because if you can just switch up like that, I don't know, guys. Listen, if you like books that will really keep you on the edge and kind of throw you out of your normal comfort zone, and they do a kind of weird shit, then that is the book for you. Do I recommend it? No, I don't recommend that you read that book, but I gave it a 3-star rating. And because, you know, there were some serious plot lines in there, there was a lot of depth. It was just stuff that, like, obviously I'm not used to, but the storyline was fleshed out. The characters all made sense. Character stories all made sense. The spice rating was a 5. Like, it was beyond spicy, like too much actually. And yeah, it was a book that I read. Let's move on to the next one. And then this last book that I read is called Passenger Princess. So this kind of links to the I Like You Like That book, where it is about a bodyguard. And this one I read on Kindle Unlimited. This one I read on Kindle Unlimited. And oh, I didn't even fill this out. Okay, so I'll just go from memory because it's the most recent book that I read. This book is about a girl who decides to enter a pageant on a whim because she was like, oh, I'm just gonna try and win, and if I win, then I'll make lots of money and I can help my friends blow up their businesses by like being their like spokesperson. So she decides to enter a competition to be Miss Americana, and she wins. So that is like how the book opens, with her winning Miss Americana. And then this also follows a very similar story to I Like You Like That, where she is now targeted and she has a lot of people like kind of like after her. She's got a stalker, she's got a lot going on, and so she needs a bodyguard, and so they hire a bodyguard to be her person as she does her 3-month tour. So I think it was 3 months. So after you win Miss Americana, you have to go around for 3 months, like promoting and doing like lots of volunteering and meeting different people and getting to know like different towns and stuff. And so she's going to be traveling, and during that time she needs a bodyguard to protect her because someone keeps sending her some notes, some death threats, all kind of stuff. And so this bodyguard that she has is obviously a big, strong, tall, you know, beefy dude who can protect her. And they have this crazy dynamic where they're flirting and getting to know each other, and bada bing bada boom. So I really loved that book as well. I rated it 4 stars. The spice rating was a solid 5. It was insanity spicy, and I loved it. I loved the entire book. This was about 347 pages. It's not from a series, it's a one-off. And then the tropes, I didn't fill out the tropes yet for this either, so I'm going to do it now. This was a grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, heartwarming friendships, because I feel like they really got to know each other really well, and opposites attract for sure. Definitely not slow burn because it was pretty fast. Would I give it a swoon-worthy love story? Was it swoony? Not really. Okay, so that's it. I've just given it grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, heartwarming friendships, and then opposites attract. Okay, so let's really quickly, before I go, let's talk about some of the books that I have already read in February. We are on February 9th right now, so I just want to tell you some of the books that I've already read. I haven't put it in my journal yet, but I wanted to just quickly like give a heads up so you guys know what's going to be coming in my February recap. So I have 3 books that I borrowed from Libby right now. I have The Right Swipe, Truth or Tequila, and Fangirl. So The Right Swipe is a book that I have physically behind me. I read half of it, but I never finished it. And I was like, you know what? I gotta finish this book. Let me just get the audiobook from the library. So I've got that and I'm getting through that. I also have Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. Then I have Truth or Tequila by Donna Schwartzy. That one's a really short book, 6 hours, so that should be interesting. So those are the 3 books that I have from the library that I'm going to be listening to in February. And then these are all audiobooks, by the way. I don't have any physical books. I don't have any Kindle books that I know I'm going to read yet. I'm going to kind of just decide after I finish these audiobooks. But on Audible, I also had another pre-order. Let me go to Audible really fast. Okay, so that on Audible, my other pre-order that I had was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This was another new release. So I have Deep End on Audible. This was a pre-order. I used my credit on this like months ago because I knew it was coming out. Spiral, the spin-off off of Collide. This one was fantastic. I finished that one already. Another book I want to read, but I don't know if I'll get through it, is Quicksilver. I have the physical, I have the Kindle book, and I have the Audible, so I will probably do a little bit of immersive reading there, but it's on my to-do list, but it's at the bottom of my priority list. I kind of want to get through all of my really cute rom-coms before I dive into a fantasy. I have not read Onyx Storm yet. I do have it. I have the Kindle book, but I haven't read it because I got sucked into the so I have been collecting the Rebecca Yarros books in dramatized adaptations on my Audible account, and I don't really want to get the audiobook that's not dramatized adaptation for Onyx Storm. I want to continue the story and listen to it how I've been listening to it, and so I don't know if I want to spoil the story for me by reading it first in the book and then listening to it, or if I just want to wait for the dramatized adaptation to come out. But I have the credits sitting there in my Audible for when it does come out, so I can buy it immediately. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching my January recap. I know this was definitely a much longer video than I usually make, but I really love long sit down chit chat videos, so hopefully you guys got some inspo and enjoyed like this style of video. If you did, please go ahead, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. The goal for this month of February is to get to 600 subscribers, hopefully, fingers crossed. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video coming up really soon.